It's well worth it. I can see Geshe on the screen.
I can see Geshe on the screen. Hello, Geshe.
Hello.
Hello. Hello, Geshe.
Not only I can see your faces, but also I can see your the places where you are living.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
Which is very unique. Yes.
Thank you so much, Geshe.
Sorry?
Thank you so much.
She is up at 1:30 in the morning, Geshe.
Yes. I heard that.
Yeah.
I heard that. Yes. Yes. So really there are many familiar faces. Some of you I haven't seen quite some time ago. And it is really nice to see them. Yes.
Lovely.
Lovely to see you too, Geshe.
I mean, here weather is really, really good, and now it's approaching 8 in the evening. Still on the terrace, it's very pleasant, and now what they call return monsoon is approaching. So last few days, a little bit windy, but it's still extremely pleasant, not hot. And also, as I mentioned briefly last week, now at monastery as well as some part of the Tibetan community here, local Tibetan community, the virus number is gone down quite rapidly.
Very good.
And so at the moment we are quite, it is quite a relief for us to not to, too worry about the spreading. So, at the moment everything is really all right. Okay.
Good. That's good, yes.
So now we are approaching 8. In the UK, I think it's now approaching 2:30, and there are people from the different places. So we will start. Okay. So as you know, there are 3 parts, and the first part is making sure our intentions to participate in this gathering, to have a positive, a constructive intention or the motivation. And the second part is the main part of the activity, that is me to continue reading this amazing prayer, King of Prayer. And the third part is part of the conclusion, that is traditionally called dedication. So now we are going to start the first part, and that is as I think all of you know this, how important it is to set our intention, to set our motivation in general, any kind of activities that we start, and particularly in the morning when we woke up, to really to set a positive intention, how we are going to spend that day, even though activities might be the routine, daily activities, the people that we are going to meet, family members, colleagues, friends, regardless of those, whatever the activities, the setting our intention, how we're going to spend that day, is something very training ourselves in that manner, a positive, a constructive intention, as we all know, at least minimum, very intentionally, deliberately, not to cause harm to others' lives, others' livelihoods, and the environment where they live. And if there's possibility, very intentionally, deliberately, to support, to help, directly or indirectly, mentally, physically, or verbally, no matter how small that might be. And that kind of, setting that kind of intention in the morning, and also here at the beginning of this gathering will be very, very helpful, that we all are able to do, that. That is really something to habituate, to familiarize, and to train ourselves. Then, of course, the people who follow, like the teachings of the Buddha, then set our intention, how we're going to spend that day, or how, why we are here to participate in this gathering, to set that intention according to the teachings of the Buddha, like the mind taking refuge in three jewels, and experiencing or holding the altruistic awakened mind, bodhicitta, or some other, positive or constructive mind, and that is very, very useful. I would like to say briefly, because it is good to. I think many of you know this, and not only you know this, I'm sure you are doing this in your daily basis. When we say the refuge lines, in this case, there are 4 lines. Some refuge lines have a little bit longer, some have a little bit shorter, regardless of the length of the recitation. It is very, very helpful, useful to, before we say the refuge lines, to really spend just 1 or 2 minutes to meditate on the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. The qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. And that is, if we have a clear and deep understanding of the qualities of the 3 jewels, the qualities of the Buddha in a summary, Buddha or Buddhas, in a brief, these beings are, fully awakened beings, fully awakened in the sense love, compassion, altruism, wisdom, realizing emptiness. These are fully, completely cultivated or developed, and all the the obscurations, all the defilements, their propensities are completely eradicated, completely abandoned, and with these 2 qualities, these fully awakened beings, Buddha or Buddhas, are their main, what you call the activities. Their main activities are really to teach, to show the path, how to living beings, how to be free from dukkha and the origins of dukkha. And that is really a summary of the qualities of the Buddha. And that we really need to, need to familiarize. Our understanding of the qualities of the Buddha need to enrich, need to make more sort of depth. For example, in the Uttara Tantra, that Saplam Continuum, where where there are 4 chapters, and the first chapter, the first part of the first chapter, really explains the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sanghas. And nowadays there are good translations of the Uttara Tantra or Saplam Continuum. There are good translations to explore a little bit some of those teachings, and also many other, little bit what you call for example, in the Gelug traditions, the Jetsun Drakpa's those lamrims, extensive lamrim, middling lamrim, have good explanation of the qualities of the Buddha, qualities of the Dharma, and the qualities of the Sangha. And so that is something very, very useful to do. And for example, a brief a summary of the qualities of the Dharma, that is peace. Peace in the sense, the what you call the complete cessation, the cessation of dukkha and the origins of the dukkha, and the path which leads to that cessation. And the path themselves, like the Noble Eightfold Paths, themselves are peace. When we practice such as the Noble Eightfold Paths, individuals experience tremendous sense of peace. So in the summary of the qualities of the Dharma is peace, and the qualities of the refuge of the Sangha, that is, have a realization, have a direct realizations of the things and events as they are. In other words, have the direct realization of emptiness or selflessness, anatma, shunyata, and having that direct understanding of emptiness, then very willing to help others who are in the spiritual path, willing, that kind of willingness, that kind of, very that kind of very, volunteer to help others. That kind of summary of the Buddha Dharma, Sangha. And that is something important, bit by bit. These things, meditation, need to build bit by bit. And also, briefly to meditate, or to really to remind ourselves why we are taking refuge in 3 jewels. And the reason, of course, there might be immediate reasons, but the long-term reason why we are taking refuge in 3 jewels, because we are not free from afflictions and their powers. Under the power of afflictions, then we act. We act with our body, speech, and minds. These actions or karmas, actions are unhelpful, unhealthy, and their consequences are also unhelpful, unhealthy, painful. And that is the reason. That is the reason why we are taking refuge. And before we, say the refuge lines, customarize, familiarize ourselves to spend just for a few minutes to first reflect on the qualities of the three jewels. Then there will be deep down ourselves, there will be tremendous sense of, that what you call the sense of inspiration, sense of thinking how amazing these three jewels are. And that will lead us to take refuge. And also, when we reflect on our this unenlightened nature, our this, this existence, although there are many good things, many positive things are there that we can experience, nevertheless, fundamentally, we are still not free from, we are under the power of afflictions and their consequences, which are dukkha. So therefore, it is very, very useful to meditate briefly before we say the refuge lines. And as you know, taking refuge means, thinking the Buddhas are one's own mentor, teacher. Dharma are the, that we need to apply, actualize, experience. And Sangha are our spiritual friends, supporters, and that kind of interaction with the three jewels is not just occasionally; it is all the time until oneself to become a Buddha, until oneself got the Dharma, until oneself become the Sangha. Until that happens, the three jewels are my refuge. So holding that kind of mind, and then same as the bodhisattva, as His Holiness Dalai Lama does frequently, and he says this very frequently, every now and then hold this mind, the altruistic awakened mind. Ideally, to ourselves, to have a structure to meditate on those techniques, like the Shantidevas clearly explained, the technique in his Guide to the Bodhisattva Way of Life, equalizing and exchanging oneself with others. In the 8th chapter, where he explained from 8th chapter, verse 89, very nicely, very detailed, and with the reasons. And those are something that we need to explore, every now and then. So have some kind of structure to not just in a form of aspiration. Not although aspiration is in a form of aspiration, the bodhicitta is amazing, but to make really what you call the impact in our spiritual journey, cultivation of bodhicitta, our meditation, our practice need a structure, and bit by bit need to build on, not selecting here and there. Sometimes it's good to do that, but in the actual practice, need to have some kind of structure. So hold this mind which genuinely, sincerely, cares well-beings of all living creatures, regardless of having a different relationship, at this stage, deep down, these differences are the reasons of temporary, that we have connection, temporary reasons. But in the deep down thinking, I would like to work, I would like to support, well-beings of all living creatures. And, whatever virtues, wholesome activities that I do, I will sort of focus or dedicate to cultivate this mind. And holding that kind of mind is very, very useful, as you know. These two, holding the mind, taking refuge, and holding the mind, the altruistic awakened mind, are the part of, setting our positive intention to join this class. But it is also part of, reminding ourselves, part of, training ourselves, familiarizing ourselves, the importance having these two minds in our part of our way of thinking, way of living, and way of interaction with the other living creatures. And that is here that we are doing that. So therefore, we will say the refuge and bodhicitta lines 3 times together. And while we are saying the lines, hold these two minds as clear as possible, as strong as possible. Sangye chedan soje chonam la chanju pado dane jaso che dage chenso jebe chonam je dola penje sangye troba sho. Sangye chedan soje chonam la chanju pado dane jaso che dage chenso jebe chonam je dola penje sangye dobara sho. Sangye chedan soje chonam la chanju pado dane jaso che dage chenso jebe chonam je dola penje sangye dobara sho. Oh yeah. So now we will do a short silent meditation. The meditation that help us, that help our minds to have a qualities of stillness and the qualities of clarity. That is, as we all know, having that kind of mind, the stillness in the sense our mind is able to stay with the one given object or given event, not easily move to one object to another object. As some of the great teachers have used, given analogies. Shangna yumeri ongboshin. That means if we want to keep our mind on one task or one event, our mind is able to stay with that event like a mountain, unable to move. So that kind of stability, stillness. But same time to have the clarity. Stillness alone will not make that although it's useful, but it will not make that much different. But on top of stillness, then the clarity. Here, the clarity has many different meanings. Clarity in the sense fully alert, fully alert. Also, clarity in the sense extremely capable. Here, same master use another analysis. In the sense, clarity in that sense, if you want to move our mind from one event to another event, according to our wishes, it is easily able to move one event to another event, one object to another object. That is also another part of the meaning of clarity. Clarity, because that is really something important part of the clarity. So therefore, although just doing 5 minutes will not make that much difference, but once again, here is we are training ourselves, we are training our minds. So part of that training, in the bigger picture of in our lives. So this is what we are going to do: just 5 minutes short silent meditation to cultivate, the concentration. Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So I will start reading the text, and as we know, the text that we are reading, and the king of the prayer, not commonly called, and last Sunday we start from the verse 1, and from verse 1 to end of the verse 4. These 4 verses are, the mainly explaining the art of the 7 practices. The first practice, which is making prostrations, and that is what we already covered. As some of you know, in the Tibetan tradition or in the Buddhist tradition, and also some, in certain cases, ancient Indian spiritual traditions, the physical, the activities, physical activities related to the spiritual, doing spiritual things is one of these. Prostration is one of these, one of the physical virtuous activities, and also very often the sutras, talk a lot about, when the Buddha's disciples approach to the Buddha, the historical Buddha, and when they approach, and they first, make three circumambulations. Although these days that tradition, the tradition doing circumambulation in the Tibetan tradition, as well as the Theravadan tradition in the Buddhist tradition, it is only done with the statues or stupas or the monasteries, and not to those great teachers. But it seems traditionally, in the ancient time, when the disciples approach to the Buddha, first they do 3 circumambulations to the Buddha, then make the 3 prostrations, and that is quite often says in the background when they explains the background of the Buddha. The disciples approached to the Buddha and had done 3 circumambulations, and then they make the 3 prostrations, then request the teachings. So that's what traditionally comes across. It seems that is the tradition, and anyway, yeah. So that we already covered. So today our reading will start from the verse 5, and verse 5, 6, and 7. These 3 verses are, explaining the second practice, that is making offerings. And here the first, as I've mentioned, as I did in relation to the making prostrations, but here also I want to make it very clear, the main purpose. Of course, there will be other purposes, other good reasons, but the main purpose here, making offerings, is really to work with, deal with this very grasping mind, very craving clinging mind. Really to work with that mind. And that is the main purpose of making prostrations. Quite often, we will come across in the teachings. When it comes to making offerings, usually it comes into two sort of levels. It says, the yar kunchokla choba, marga ngelongla jimba. What does that mean? It means arrange or make offerings to those, those great beings, those enlightened beings. Make offerings or arrange offerings to those, the great beings. Also, make charity, or make charity to those beings who need, our charity. Those people who are lacking basic needs, food, medicines, friendships, shelters, provide, give charity to those things. And these two are in the same package. These two are not in a different package. And that really clearly, indicates, or one of the main reasons that arranging, making offerings is to really to deal with our, the craving, clinging, attachment. Quite often, the culturally, in the Tibetan culture, as also, I heard in the other Asian Buddhist cultures, making offerings to the, the Buddhas, to the the temples, to the ordains, saying to create merits, the main merit is when we make offerings, due to that action, whatever small, whatever big, whatever thing that we offer, offer without any sense of attachment to what we offer, attachment, something return, and that is something important part of that. If we do that, without any offer whatever that we offer, without any self-interest, without any self-interest, then that is the merit. That is the merit. If we are able to train ourselves, making offerings, to with that, develop or cultivate or enhance that mind, without any self-interest in the process of making offerings, then the merit is there. There isn't a merit something outside than ourselves. The merit is when our mind start to reduce the self-interest, then the merit is, achieved. So that is something important to remember. Why I'm saying that, although here the commentary or the verses have not explained very obviously. Quite often in the bodhisattva and the teachings, and also in the bodhisattva and the teachings, it says, the korsum mimikpa. Korsum mimikpa. What does that mean? Korsum, the three things. Three things in this case, the object that we offer, or that we are going to offer, the activities, or you can say the receivers. There are different explanations. Say the activities that we offer, and ourselves, who is making offerings. these are the 3 korsum. Literally it means 3 rounds. 3 rounds. 3 rounds or 3 things, that is the objects and the actions and the giver. And korsum, mimikpa. Mimikpa, it means, not to have any self-grasping. Not to have any self-grasping. Self-grasping to the object that you are giving, self-grasping to the event, the action that, and self-grasping to oneself as a giver, And these 3, when we have these 3 mind in the process of making offerings, then our offerings will become very, very meritful. Merit will be very, very big. And if there's a merit, something other than the, anyway. So that is something important to say that and to remember that. Yeah. Now, then the offerings that are listed, which is very clear. I don't need to say that much in the verse 5. In the Tibetan writing, first 3 lines are the list of the offerings, and the last one is which in English it comes in the first line. Every Buddha I make offerings. So that in Tibetan that comes last line in the verse 5. In English it in the first line. So now remind ourselves. And last Sunday, I mentioned, and also text itself mentioned, imagine the entire space. Entire space is, filled, with those great beings, Buddhas and bodhisattvas, those great teachers, and indirect those great beings. So to really imagine, and that is useful to train. And it is also mentioned in the little bit later, because the text that we are reading, we will come across every now and then using slightly different terms. Sometimes in Tibetan, Gyalwa, that means victorious. Sometimes a term is used, the Sanghas, that is Buddha. Sometimes the different terms are used. Otherwise, we will come across every now and then the enlightened beings. And when we say the lines, the verses, say it in the atmosphere of the presence of all those enlightened beings, enlightened beings. So now here again, the second practice out of the 7, second practice, which is making offerings, making offerings to all those great beings. And that is really important. Every Buddha make offerings. So the first line. Now, first I will read in Tibetan, that verse 5. Medok tamba, tengwa tamba tang, senye namdang, jukpa tukchok tang, marme chok tang, tukpe tamba yi, jawa tedalani choba yi. So here, medok tamba, medok is flower, tamba here nicely put it, of the liveliest flowers, tamba, medok tamba, tengwa tamba. So in other words, in the when we imagine or when we arrange offerings of flower, we can have, in the West, there are so many beautiful flowers. You can, make offerings. And here, they're talking about not just the, what you call the bunch of flowers, but also talking about in India, there's a tradition to make beautiful garlands. I remember this very clearly when I was, here before, as a young monk. And Indian ladies, nowadays I was told not that many, but Indian ladies, in the morning, and they put beautiful, the fresh flower garland on their hairs. Most of these are jasmine, what you call the jasmine flowers, and particularly in the South India, the ladies in the morning when they go to work or whatever, they have this, beautiful, jasmine garland, the flower put in there, and because of the smell, I had a difficulty to the jasmine. I have no difficulty to have jasmine tea to drink, but I have a difficulty with the smell. So like the garland, which is, and also some other arrangement, it is talk about metal, silma, that kind of flowers, which, the what you call the loose flowers. If you go to some of those Indian markets, they're selling on the one side, selling all those fresh fruits and vegetables, and some you can go in some other side, you can see the huge pile of loose flowers, because it is part of the tradition to make offerings, flowers to the the deities and so forth. So here that is metal tamba, changwa tamba tam. And then also talk about the music and different types of music, perfume on ointment. Yeah, that is mainly for the bodies, to offer to the body beautiful, so nice smelling, smell, oil, like that. And the best of parasols, the umbrella to protect from the suns or the rains, and that is part of the offerings. Or parasols also have some significance, and not just protect from the suns and also the rains, but also in India there's some other significance. So then say that to offer to every Buddha make offerings. Then the next verse 6, I will first read in Tibetan. Nasa tamba namdang tichotam, chima puma rirab nyabatam, gobe kevar pagwe chugunji, yawatadalani chobaki. Again in English, the last line in Tibetan come first. So again, same as every Buddha make offerings, and that is something useful to remember that. And here the offerings are, the anyway, beautiful garments and beautiful fragments of sand, very nice, those things, and also powdered incense or heap of, this is talking about a mound heap as high as Mount Meru, and arranged in perfect symmetry. So that is really the offerings of beautiful garments, beautiful sands, and also incense, and these are beautifully, nicely arranged. And here, as you can see, the lists of the offerings are something to do with our five sense consciousnesses, five sense organ consciousnesses. That And this is the tradition. This is the tradition in general, tradition all over the all over the world. Major world religious traditions have these offerings. These offerings as to their own teachers and so on and so forth, and have a beautiful, nice cultures, nice, beautifully arranged. So I will not go any detail on those things. Now the verse, so these first two verses, offerings, list of offerings in the verse 5 and 6. These are what commentators call, the common offerings. Common offerings in the sense, the offerings which are, that in our worldly, what you call the environment, easy to get. And so that is what they call common offerings. Or sometimes it's in Tibetan called, anyway, better to use that one. Common offerings. Common offerings in the sense, the offerings objects, offering substances are easily available in our worldly environment, such as flowers, incense, and garments, and so on and so forth. Now here is, useful to learn how to nicely arrange, nicely, beautifully arrangement is also part of the offerings. It's also part of the offerings. Now then the verse 7. So first I'll read in Tibetan. Choba kanam lame gyakchewa. Teda gyawa lai tamje layam me. Sangbuchola tebe toptaki. Gyawa konga changze choba ji. So that is the verse 7 in Tibetan. And this verse is called, as you can see in English, unsurpassable offerings, as you can see in the first line in English. Then the vast and unsurpassable offerings. Unsurpassable offerings in the sense, compared to the previous offerings which are mentioned, which are listed in the previous two verses, are offerings that we commonly available, which are mentioned. Now the offerings which is mentioned in this verse, although there isn't any particular what you call the substances or a particular atom like the flower, incense, or butter are not mentioned in this verse. But what is mentioned in here is unsurpassable offerings, then the vast and unsurpassable offerings. And this is what here, in the next line, it clearly explained, inspired by devotion to all the Buddhas. So all our virtuous activities, such as, the holding the refuge mind, such as holding the bodhisattva, such as meditating, on emptiness. All those virtuous activities, are also in the part of our offerings. And also, as I earlier mentioned, this when we make offerings, it is important to have a strong, clear mind in the process of making offerings. Have a strong and a clear mind of understanding of emptiness. Offering should be, ideally offering should be made, arranged, and made with a strong atmosphere in our mind, strong atmosphere of understanding of emptiness. Understanding of emptiness, nature of emptiness, of the offerings that we make, and the receivers, that the Buddhas and all those beings, and also our activities and ourselves as offering makers. So these are the part of talking about unsurpassable offerings. Unsurpassable offerings. So that is something important to know. And also in the second line, inspired by my devotion to all the Buddhas. Inspired by, in the sense, this prayer, the King of Prayers. King of Prayers have inspired to us or motivate us, or King of reciting the King of Prayer, reading the King of Prayer, lead us, that kind of strong connection, devotion in the sense, strong sense of connection to all the Buddhas, all the Buddhas, and to move by the power of faith, power of my faith, to faith in good actions. And this is also part of here talking about, the King of Prayers, moved by that reading, meditating, listening, contemplating these very, moving, aspirations, these amazing, the verses, and that really lead us to make these offerings. So last line, I prostrate and offer to all the victorious ones, all the victorious ones. So now here, I will just briefly touch on, which I didn't do last time. I said I will do in the other day. So here talking about victorious. What is the meaning of victorious? Gyalwa, in Tibetan, Gyalwa. And here, victory or victorious, victory, Gyalwa in Tibetan, from the four, quite often they translated saying, not translating, four maras, or in other words, four obscurations, it will be better, or sometimes translated for evils or like that, but maybe better to translate four obscurations. What are those four obscurations that the Buddha or fully awakened beings are free from? And the four obscurations are, the first obscuration in Tibetan first, Nyumongbedu, obscuration of affliction, Nyumongbedu, obscuration of afflictions, Nyumongbedu. So, Buddhas are free from obscurations of afflictions. And the second obscuration is in Tibetan, Pungbu. Pungbo here refers to our five aggregates, body, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness. Those are the five aggregates. So Pungbo, literally it means hips, put together. So our existence, my unenlightened existence is, these bind with these five aggregates. So, what happened, the Buddhas, when we attain fully enlightenment, we are free from these five aggregates. What is the wrong? What is wrong with having these, the 5 aggregates? With these 5 aggregates, then we'll have, this birth, aging, sickness, and death. That's what we have. Due to having these 5 aggregates, what we have are the result of, the afflictions and karma or actions committed, created by, motivated by the afflictions. So what is the result of having these 5 aggregates, which are the result of the affliction? And then we have, without any control, without ourselves, without anything to say, what we have is birth, aging, sickness, and death. So the second obscuration is the obscuration of aggregates. Then the third the obscuration is in Tibetan is called Chidajidu. And that is literally it means the obscuration of death. Obscuration of death. That is mainly talking about nature. What you call the nature of impermanence. Nature of impermanence. These 5 aggregates being impermanence, then therefore we have this gross form. What we have is we have death. We have death. We have in that process we have nothing to say. It is under our we don't have any control, and that is death is in the gross sense here. In the subtle meaning here, the Chidajidu, the obscuration of death, talking about the process of this continuation of one life to another life under the power of afflictions and karma, and that is the third what you call the obscurations, and the fourth obscuration in Tibetan Heightened. It has this one has a connotation, or has a slightly not connotation. The usage of the term have a the Indian deep Indian culture. Literally, what the meaning is this. The free obscuration of hatred. Not hatred. Obscuration of jealousy or envy. So and that is what here the fourth obscurations. So when we talk about victorious, or when the Buddha is called victorious, or Buddhas are called victorious, they are the victorious in the sense free from these 4 obscurations, 4 obstacles or 4 obscurations. So that is what here, this term that we are looking at. Now we are going back to the verse 7, which quite often comes across this word, this term, which is in the end of the verse 7, prostrate and offer to all you victorious one. So victorious, enlightened beings, awakened beings, the victorious ones. These all are different terms, but refer to the Buddhas, fully awakened beings, and use different terms to have a slightly different understanding of what does mean the Buddha. And that's what here the purpose is. Okay, so that is the verse verse 7. So I'm going to go to verse 8. That is the third practice. So we completed a second practice, which is the making offerings. And the purpose of the offering is to deal with our this grasping, the craving, clinging, this attachment mind, to reduce, to eliminate. That is the purpose of making offerings. To whom that we make offerings? Here, explicitly, all those Buddhas and bodhisattvas, and also make offerings to those living beings, sentient beings, who need our charity. And that is the to whom that we make offerings. What kind of things that we make offerings? All the beautiful things, naturally, natural beauties, or the man-made, beautiful things, and including one's own, those virtues, wholesome, physical, verbal, or mental, those virtues and wholesome things. Those are the things that we make offerings. And while we are making offerings, physical things or mental things, beautifully, nicely, vast amounts, beautifully arranged. But here, another important factor is strongly, clearly have a mind which understands the nature of emptiness. Not just the offerings, but the receivers, but also ourselves who make the offerings. And that is here the second. Now the third is here titled confessing, and the verse 8. Now here, purpose of this practice, confessing, which is very universal. I think it seems all the world major religious traditions have this practice, confessing the negativities. Of course, the way to do it and the background philosophy may have difference, but as having this practice, it seems very universal. Now, what is the purpose of making this, having this practice? Traditionally, and if we read the commentaries, engaging this practice, third practice, confessing practice, that will say purify our negativities. Now, what is the meaning of purification? That is important. The meaning of purification. Now, the meaning of purification here, it is mainly, to really the negativities that we have created, unwholesome that we have created with our body, speech, and mind in this lifetime or in the past. Those negativities, their consequences are not, results are not ripened so far. No, not ripened so far. So these negativities are purified. When we talk about purification, that's what we are talking about. So the meaning of purification here is to really make sure that the results are not going to ripen upon us in this life or in the future lives. Or if the results are going to ripen, but not in their full strength, not in their full power. And that is really here the meaning of purification. Results are not going to happen. Not saying, the past activities, those virtuous activities that we have done, I'm going to change them. We can't change them. They're already done. They're already past. But the meaning of purification is the result of those unwholesome actions to due to the purification, not to going to ripen upon us. And that is the meaning of purification. So how it works, Now that is the thing, how it works. And now just think in the external example, which I quite often use, and some of you have heard. Example is this: when we sow a seed, flowers, vegetables, fruits, and when we put moisture and any kind of conditions to grow that, when we realize we have sowed the wrong seed, not the right seed, then if we stop watering, taking care of that plant, it depends on how strong that we do it, but it will definitely, if we stop watering, if we stop giving, fertilizer, if we stop taking care of that plant, it will not give us the full whatever result it has if we continue to take care of that plant. If we have two things, sow two seeds, and one seed, when the plant grows, shoots coming, if you take care very well, and all the way until it gives result. If one seed, when we start to realize that we sow and not to take care, the result, what we're going to get, will be very, very different. And the purification here, the meaning, my understanding, is in that sense. So stopping the doing the same things, those unwholesome things again and again and again, stopping that is like the stopping the watering, moisturizing, or fertilizing, taking care of that wrong seed or the wrong plant, and that is the meaning of purification. Past actions are already past. There's nothing we can do. Their consequences are not yet happened, and that is what we are changing. And I think that should be in our head when we say I'm purifying negativities, not meaning connotation is not those past actions to make disappear, not that. The action, result of those actions, not make sure not to ripen upon us. And that is the meaning of purification. It is important to remember. Okay, and purpose of purification. For not to ripen the result of our past unwholesome actions. So how that is done, then it is done with this, as I think most of you know. In the Buddhist purification, I'm sure other spiritual traditions also have similar elements, but in the Buddhist purifications, in which form that you do, in the pure Sutriyana form of purification, or the Vajrayana, within the Vajrayana, Kriya, Charya, or highest yoga, Tantra, which form, which deity, which recitation, which Buddha's name that we use to do the purification. The most important point is having these 4 powers. In Tibetan, Topshi. In Tibetan, Nyembo Topshi Gone Shapa. Nyembo, literally it means antidote. Topshi, 4 powers. Shapa, confess. Do the confessing with the 4 powers. And I'm sure all of you know what are the 4 powers. The 4 powers are, I use first power of foundation or base, power of foundation or base. Second, power of regret, power of regret. Third, power of antidote, power of antidote. And fourth, power of determination, not to repeat again. Promise, sometimes is translated power of promise. So those 4 powers. The first one is called power of foundation or base. To perform purification in Buddhist, in the Buddhist practice, while we are performing, our basic state of mind must be a positive, a strong positive mind, like strong refuge, strong compassion, strong altruistic mind. The basic state of mind must be in that kind of mind, either mind taking refuge, bodhicitta, compassion, love. That kind of states of mind is the foundation to do the purification. With that mind, then second is power of regret or remorse. And the remorse, the regret will occur within us when we understand the mistakes are made, unwholesome actions are committed. And these unwholesome actions are, not helpful to ourselves and not helpful to others. And their consequences are painful to experience. When we have that kind of understanding, then the genuine regret will occur. Genuine regret will occur. That kind of, not regret or remorse, not out of fear. That is not helpful. Here, regret, as I mentioned earlier, entire purpose of purification is to ripening the result of our past unwholesome actions. To stop the result to ripening upon us of our past negative actions, best way to stop is not to repeat the same actions again. And the process of not repeating same unwholesome actions again is acknowledging, understanding these are mistakes. These are unwholesome. And that psychologically, that understanding, that recognition is the most powerful to not to repeat unwholesome deeds again. So therefore, the second power of regret is very important, very, very important. Then the third power of antidote, actual antidote. Traditionally, sometimes a recitation of Vajrasattva's 100 syllable mantras, the other deities' mantras. The actual antidote is, for example, to deal with the attachment, unwholesome actions that we committed out of attachment. Actual antidote is really cultivating deep understanding of nature of impermanence, or antidote, to anger, hatred, deep sense of love. These are the actual antidote in the third power, or the cultivating strong sense of compassion or altruistic mind. If we created unwholesome out of self-centered mind, the antidote here is deep, strong sense of altruistic mind. And of course, understanding of emptiness. And these are the third power, the power of actual remedy or actual antidote. Of course, with the certain recitations, Vajrasattva's 100-syllable recitation, Akshobiya's mantra recitation, 35 Buddhas' names recitation, or other deities' recitations, But recitation alone is not the actual antidote. Actual antidote are those mental powers. And the fourth power is power of promise. So really we need to cultivate our mental strength not to repeat the same mistakes again. And that will happen, as I mentioned, relation to the second power, the power of remorse. So those four powers are very important. Sorry, I'm running out of my time. Okay, now I'll read verse 8 in Tibetan. Dejak shitang temu wankini, lu tang a tang dishin yiji jang, dikpa dagi giba chichiba, teta tamje dagi sososha. So it is here clearly mentioned, while driven by desire or attachment, hatred, and ignorance, with my body, my speech, as well as with my mind. Before you, I confess and purify each and every one. So in the first line, whatever negativities acts I have committed. So it is slightly different order in the Tibetan. The second in English, second line come first in Tibetan. So here, three poisons are recognized: attachment, aversion, and ignorance are recognized. And driven by or led by these three poisons, and we act unwholesome actions with our body, speech, and mind. Intentionally or unintentionally, or out of the habits, we do that. And here, saying, before you, in front of all the Buddhas and those great beings, I confess with those four powers. With those four powers, purified each and every one. So that is really, really powerful practice to do. Powerful in the sense, when we perform purification with these four powers, there is a great chance we will not do the same unwholesome deeds again. And in that sense, our purification works. So that is the third practice out of the 7. So we will leave it here. Already more longer than our 20 minutes. And so we will conclude with the recitation, and the recitation with the 21 Tara prayers and verses as a dedication. As we know, the 21 Tara prayers here, we were mainly dedicating, this COVID-19, this virus, to be, soon to be stopped spreading and causing pains and difficulties to many living beings, not only human beings. Recently, I read news and in the BBC, and in many parts of the Europe, the Denmark, Holland, many animals are killed because they caught a version of COVID-19. And number is just mind-boggling. In Denmark, when I first read that article in the BBC, they killed more than 17 or 18 millions of minks, that animals. And when I saw that, I thought, wow, still they're keeping those animals just to get some furs. And we human beings are very, very, in certain extents, we are very, not just destroying the environment, but these poor animals, just to get a little bit, I don't know what kind of pleasant, what kind of things they have, having that mink fur clothes. So anyway, I'm not going to mourn. So that the 21 Tara prayers dedication to this virus to be soon to be eliminated, and also long life prayers, bodhicitta, increasing bodhicittas. So we'll say the 21 Tara prayers together. Om Je Ma Pama Droma La Cha Se Lo Chanze Droma Nyuma Pa Ma Jene Geji Lo Dan Drama Jiden Songwen Chuje She Je Kesa Je Wan Len Chuan Chanze Dongge Dawa Gwen Do Kanwa Jene Zigwe Sham Kama Dongda Soba Nama Je Rado Chewe Rambara Chanze Zeng Chone Je Peme Chane Nambara Je Jemba Zundu Kado Shewa Seba Samden Ju Niam Chanze Dejin Shebe Zodo Taye Nambara Jawa Je Malu Baro Jemba Tobe Jawe Seki Shindo Tem Chanze Do Dara Hong Yeke Dedan Chodan Namka Kan Jigden Dombo Shakti Nende Leba Meba Guba Ne Chanze Jaje Mela Tsamba Nongla Natso Wanchu Che Dombo Rana Jisa Nanda Nijin Soje Dune De Chanze Jeje Chadan Peje Paro Chogo Rabdo Jong Egon Yenjang Shakti Nende Meba Choba Shindo Ba Chanze Dore Shamni Dabe Honge Nabe Sabini Ramen Da Ratan Beje Jigden Sumna Yewani Chanze Dore Jiba Chenpo Deje Pao Nambara Jong Chuje Chene Chonye Denze Dao Tamje Malusam Chanze Kunjo Sumzen Chaje Seme Toga Nambara Jem Malu Choje Kolo Jembe Ranje Veje Sonama Chum Chanze Rabdo Gawa Jebe Ujen Veje Chenwa Bem Sheba Rabshe Dudara Yin Dudan Jigden Wando Zem Chanze Sashi Kyungwe Tso Nama Tamje Guba Numa Nyem Chonye wa yege honge, pongpa tamje nambara zhe, changze tawe dombo ojen, jenpa tamje shindo bara, rebe chene weba mele, tabara shindo wero zem, changze kebe tama me tang, barwe tingwe wenene, ejan yung kumu kune ko kai, jaye pongne nambara chong, changze saji wala chake, teje nujin shabje dong, chonye jenze yege honge, rinpa dumbo namne ge, changze dema gema shema, nyangen dejin ju nye, sowa omda yanda tenbe, diwa chenpo chomba nye, changze kune korwa kawe, jaye lune nambara ge, ige jube ngane gobe, riwa hongle choma nye, changze turi shamne dabe, honge nabe sabe nye, rira menda ratan beje, jigden somna yewa nye, changze laye soye nambe, rida dajin chana nam, tara nye ju peje yege, duna malu bane sem, changze laye sonam jebo, tada miyam chedem, kune goja gawa jeje, zeda melwa ngenpa sem, changze nima dawa jebe, jinye pola vero sem, para nije duda rai, shindo chape rimne sem, changze dinye somnam gobe, shive tudan yanda dem, dudan rolan nijin sonam, chomba ture rabcho nyema, save ngaji tuba deta, changze wane nishu zang. Oh yeah, dedication. Gewa di jiwo ge, sanama yishe co co shen, sanama yishe le chong we, tamba kunyi toba ra. Chanjo semjo rembo che, ma je pa na ma je jo che, je pa nyam pa me pa yang, kong ne kong du pe wa jo. Kan re ra we kor we shin ka ma zo, pen dan de wa ma lu jo. Chere se wan tenzin jaso ye, shabe se de panto ten yoro che. Oh yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. 15 minutes, a little bit longer than we scheduled. People who are listening from Australia, you you get 15 minutes less to have good sleep.
It was worth it though, Geshe.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I will see you next
very much.
Sunday.
Yes.
Thank
you, Geshe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe.
Very helpful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh yeah.
Great rest.